If there's one thing that I've learned in the last 7 years of conducting interviews is that you cannot assume how somebody got to where they're at. There's always a story behind it. And today, Chase Baker, who's a former Boise State football player, joins the show, and we're going to learn about his journey. As we do with all the other guests, we learn about the journey, but his journey is so unique. It's something that I never would have expected had I not interviewed him. There's some stories in there that I didn't know, even after researching his career and being, a fan of him when he was at Boise State. I didn't know some of these stories. So we're going to learn a lot about it. That includes his high school career, his injuries he's sustained, his collegiate career, NFL career, his coaching career with the Fan Controlled Football League. How did he end up with the Barcelona Dragons in Spain? And how did he end up at NFL Academy over in the UK? And what are they doing it with the NFL Academy? And what's the whole goal of that? That's all covered today in our interview. And I hope you guys tap in because it's a super important one for you guys to listen to. I want to give a shout out to all my listeners and all the sponsors of the podcast. Athlete Narrative, who's one of the sponsors of the show. Athlete Narrative is an amazing app for any athlete who's looking to leverage their brand for their name, image, and likeness. If you want to build your brand and you need help doing it for a very affordable cost of $90 a month, click the link in the description. I can get you 10% off each month. It's normally $100. You can get it for $90 a month, and they'll take care of all of your branding needs. They'll post for you on social media. They'll provide you with education. They'll help you build your platform so that when you get to the collegiate level, you can leverage that for your name, image, and likeness to monetize off of that while you're a college athlete, whether that's junior college, NAIA, D3, D2, D1. It doesn't matter. They're there to help you. So check them out. I want to give a shout out to them. And also a shout out to all my listeners who have been here. I appreciate you all. The only thing I ask in return from any of you is to kindly leave me a review. If that's on Spotify and you just leave me a 5-star rating, that'd be awesome. If it's on Apple Podcasts and you can write me a review, that's even more helpful. But any review helps the podcast's growth. And that's how we've been able to get out to 182 countries in all 50 states. It's because of all of you guys. So thank you so much. Tap into this one. Take notes. This is Chase Baker and myself on the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time! Woo!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everyone? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. If you guys are rocking with me since 2017, I appreciate you guys joining me for another episode of the show, another interview. And if you guys are new to the platform, maybe this is your first time listening, which we get new listeners each week, welcome aboard. I appreciate you guys joining and listening to the interviews. I would just encourage you guys, if this is your first time, whatever platform you're listening on, or if you're watching it on YouTube, I'm trying to build my YouTube platform. I never did that for the last 7 years. And this is like a big initiative for me to try to at least get more content on YouTube. So maybe consider hitting that follow button. I'd really appreciate it. But other than that, just sit back and enjoy the interview. We got good content coming for you guys today. So as I said in the intro, we're talking to, he's a man of many titles. I mean, we're talking coach, former professional football player, former Boise State football player. I mean, there's so many different things that we could label a man as, but his name is Chase Baker. So we're going to call him that because he's more than just a title there. His name is Chase Baker, and he's joining the show, and I'm happy to have him. So Chase, thanks for joining us, man.
Oh, appreciate you, Shane. Happy to jump on. Excited to talk with another Boise alum, and yeah, appreciate you.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. So currently, tell us where you're at this particular moment.
At this moment, I am in Loughborough in the UK. It's a little town about an hour and a half, about an hour 45 minutes north of London. So I am in the UK right now coaching for the NFL Academy.
Let's go. Okay, so just so everybody's aware, that's where he's at. But before he got there, that's the journey that I kind of want to touch base on and the lessons learned up until this point for him. And so he didn't just arrive there. There's a lot of other parts of his journey that have taken him there, and I'm sure there's more parts to his journey later on too that we'll learn about later. But let's rewind the clock, unbox a couple of things. So Chase, I knew who you were from Boise State's days, but we'll get there. Before the Boise State days, though, I want to ask you, like growing up, did you have aspirations to play collegiate football and potentially professional football when you were younger?
Strangely, yes. I was a little delusional when I was really young. And I remember telling my grandma, she was asking what I wanted to do when I get older. And I was like, I want to play football, grandma. And she was like, yeah, that's a great, well, let's talk more realistic. But yeah, early on, it was something. And I had to temper back my expectations and kind of reverse engineer how I was going to do it. But it's funny. But looking back on those early days, that was, I wanted to play sports. I knew I enjoyed them, and that was something I wanted to be around.
You know what though? That's so awesome. A lot of us were like, dude, I was one of those kids. Was like, I'm going to play in the NBA for 3 years, and I'll play in the NFL for 3 years. Then I might try hockey. Like I was always like, I'm going to be in the NHL. Like I didn't know what I was talking about, but like a lot of kids say it, few of them do it, and you've done it, and I think that's really cool. Like I think it's inspiring. So like if you're one of the younger kids out there, or if you're a parent and your child is, has aspirations to play at the next level and play at a high level in their sport, this might be something to listen to because our guest right here, Chase, knows what it takes to get there. He had a dream and he kept working towards it. So I guess let's go to the high school days, Chase. What was high school football like for you, knowing that you wanted to play at the next level? How did your high school experience go?
Yeah, so I grew up in Northern California, was born in Paradise, and just an interesting, dynamic growing up. So I'd spend a year with my dad, a year with my mom. They were always moving. So never was in the same city twice until high school. And ended up going to Rockland High School, and it was a really random place. My mom just decided she liked the area. She heard good things about the schools. And all of a sudden, instead of we were supposed to go live in Lake Havasu, Lake Havasu, all of a sudden now I'm in Rockland, California. Wasn't initially very excited about it, but really grateful for my mom for making that choice and making that happen. But it was a little bit strange going in, but as soon as I got there, I knew I wanted to get into football. So that was the first thing I did. Got into school a couple weeks late, but I went in and said, hey, I want to play on the football team. Obviously, the coach, at that point, I think I was 6'2" in middle school, and I thought I was going to play basketball. It never grew again. So I walked in at 6'2", ready to rock. And so they were like, yes, sir, we got you. They sent me to the freshman, and my career began at Rockland. But I had a great couple years at Rockland. Some amazing coaches, Adams, Benzel, O'Donnell, so some great coaches that really influenced and impacted how I move forward. Um, and then, yeah, obviously, I had a good junior year. My junior year, I played really well, and that kind of kicked off my recruiting. And then, obviously, Boise was one of a few offers I had, right? And then never played my senior year. Tore my ACL playing rugby, actually out here in England.
Wow.
Um, and so never got a chance to get on the field my senior year. And Boise was very loyal, and they stuck with their offer. And especially after I tore it a second time, and wasn't able. I thought I was going to get a chance to play the second part of the season. That didn't happen. I remember calling Boise, just thinking, they're going to pull it. And they said, we're sticking with you. And I was like, all right, well, I want to commit. If you guys are loyal to me, I'm going to be at Rock with you. And wanted to pull that trigger. And so, yeah, just grateful for how everything kind of panned out. And obviously, Boise was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
That's crazy. I don't think I knew that part of your journey, to be honest. Actually, I didn't. I know that for a fact. It's not like I don't think. I didn't know that you tore your ACL playing rugby your senior year. You didn't get to play. I didn't know that. And I was just about to
Uh,
ask you about your recruiting process in high school, like how the recruiting went. And obviously, you mentioned, Boise was one of them that stayed loyal, and that's something that you thought about. But I want to know from you mentally, Chase, because I've got a kid that the crazy thing is I'm actually representing their school right now. It's a kid I coached in basketball, tore his ACL literally 4 days before tryouts, and he had progressed. He was going to be on varsity this year. Finally, as a senior, was going to make his way up to varsity. And he was one of those that was, late bloomer, but he progressed. He was actually going to be in the rotation quite a bit, from my understanding, and ends up tearing his ACL literally 4 days before tryouts, and then he couldn't play. And so, I just know that like the mental and emotional toll that took on him. Now he's not going to be playing college ball. You already had offers. So I actually imagine yours might even be worse, like the mental and emotional toll it takes outside of the physical stuff. But can you kind of like explain maybe how you were able to overcome that, knowing that, man, maybe some of these offers get pulled and all this stuff and all that stuff that might be going on in an athlete's head that when they're young, like is what's going to happen to my future kind of thing. How did you overcome that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, especially never having injuries, especially if that's your first thing, and all of a sudden they're like, you can't do anything for 9 months. Uh, it's um, it's definitely an emotionally draining situation. It's tough, and so I don't think I handled it very well, honestly, the first time it happened, and probably not the second. But having a great support system and then having people that can help you kind of adjust your mindset and adjust how you look at things and continue to grind and work for it. And you know, it's going to test your patience. It's going to test your passion and your love and your dedication. And yeah, you just got to figure a way to push through it and come out the other side. But yeah, no, that passion has to continue to drive you. That love for the game, whatever you are, whatever that goal is behind the injury. It just tests you. And so there's a lot of different things that play into that. And so for me, I think looking back at it, I know my mom had to pay for that first surgery. And then when the second one happened, you know, those were big bills. And, you know, we didn't have a lot of money. And so knowing that what my mom had to do to make that happen and get those surgeries, and we had a great surgeon, I just felt like part of it was making sure that I did right by her as well, for her sticking her neck out and making sure, you know, I got what I needed to be able to get back and play again at some point. So there were a lot of things that pushed me, but it's part of the game, and it's just one of those tough things, and it's going to test guys. But having a support system is huge.
Appreciate you sharing that. That's huge. I was thinking, dude, it's cool that you were cognizant of like how much it costs, right? Like a lot of people don't, a lot of young guys, young girls, they don't really have to think, they don't think about it. They don't need to necessarily, but like when you put that into perspective, it's like, yeah, dude, when I got my nose shattered in a fight when I was in 7th grade, I thought that was crazy. It was a big bill to go get my nose fixed. I had to go get surgery on it and all this stuff. And I didn't realize, like, now I look back, I'm like, dang, dude, it's not like we were rich or anything. And my mom had to pay that. Like,
Yeah.
that's something that's cool that you like. I realized that later on in life, but the fact that you were able to be like cognizant of that and understand, like, have a little bit of motivation there to like do right by her. That's awesome, dude. Like, do right for her, I should say. That's super cool. You know, Chase, when you got over to Boise State, coming off an injury and everything, like, talk about what the transition was like going from your high school days, and then obviously having not played for a year and recovering during that whole entire year and everything, and then now you're in a college system and trying to recover and get yourself back to full speed. What was the transition like going to college ball?
It was trial by fire, man. So yeah, not my initial surgery, 9 months, tear it again. So I have another, it's 18 months back to back of recovery. I get to Boise in the winter of '08, and the first thing I was essentially cleared for was our mat drills, which are just insane. You know, balls of the wall. They're trying to break you. Very mentally and physically exhausting, and so that was kind of welcome to college football experience. And I was just happy, you know, I didn't quit. I didn't let it grind me down. You know, and I stuck with it. And I think that was it was terrible at the time, but I think it was really good for me of hey, this is what you have to do in order to be here. And it was just a level I'd never seen before. But you know, I was excited to rise to the occasion and be able to work through those 545s, those mat drills. And you know that 6 months leading up into before the season helped a lot in preparation. I gray shirted, so I wasn't there during that you know the summer. I came in the winter. We had a number of other gray shirts as well. I think Shea, Dan Paul, you know, so Boise was really good at figuring out who could come later, guys that were dealing with injuries, local guys if they needed guys developed. It was really smart how they played that out. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy introduction into college football.
Man, so I've heard mat drills be referenced a couple of times now, and I've talked to like Shane Williams Rhodes, who came after you. He's referenced mat drills. Can you give me something specific? Is that even allowed to be talked about? Like, what are the mat drills you guys are talking about? Because I've heard nothing but like the fact that they're like death.
Yeah, man, it's about details. So you're coming out, and you got to listen to the coaches. You got to react accordingly. It's 100% all out effort, and you know putting your foot over the line, false starting, going the wrong way. All that stuff gets you and the rest of your group sent back. So you don't want to be the one that causes your group to have to redo everything. And it's very intense, very tiring workouts, And so a lot of times you're doing rolls, you're shuffling, whatever it might be, but it's just intense, all out for like, it's not even that long. It's probably an hour max, but it's just go, go, go. You mess up, you're causing the rest of your team or the rest of your group to have to redo it and suffer the consequences of it. So you just you figure out who's mentally tough and who's gonna pull through and who's gonna make it happen for their teammates.
Dude, that's crazy, man. It's cool to hear. Like, I mean, your era was like the era of Boise State football when it really started doing that hockey stick, like shoot up and growth and whatnot. Like that was the true, like, that was it. Like, I mean, you guys had NFL talent across the board, like yourself. I mean, it was nuts, but it obviously speaks to like how that developed. Like, you're doing the work before the product was on the field, like you're doing it all behind the scenes, doing the thing. And then you guys dominated on the field. It's just crazy. Question for you then, what was your first game experience like when you finally were able to play at Boise State and get on the field after, the time of, you went through practices and training camps and all that stuff, but you had gray shirt and all that. So when you finally got on the field, Chase, what was it like for you?
Again, it's just whirlwind. I don't remember what the first game was that year. I think Idaho State, 08.
Oh, wait, it was, I think it was Idaho State. Yeah.
Yeah. But man, it was just a surreal thing to even think like to get on the field, to play on that blue. And so I just tried to take advantage of every opportunity I could. I had an amazing coach, broke down the position, the defensive line position, in a way that was really easy to understand it. And all I had to do was go out there and execute. But yeah, so I was just, again, kind of leading back to the 545s. I just wanted to do my job and make sure I did right by the team. But and going back to originally what you were saying, man, I know we were kind of a really cool period of time for Boise, but man, there's decades of guys that really laid the foundation at Boise. So we get a lot of the cool credit. We had some great years, and the numbers are amazing. But there's a lot of great players that have come through Boise well before us.
Oh yeah, for sure. I should be careful on the way I word that too, because yeah, I'm a Boise guy like since the time I was born. So like I was there when there was nobody in the stands, and I'd be at the games with my uncle. And then I was there, during Bart Hendricks days and Ryan Dinwiddie days and then Brock Forsey days, all that, like as they started to kind of make a name for themselves, beating Fresno in the early 2000s and kind of shifting the game and stuff. And but I mean, yeah, then it finally, that all laid the foundation for sure beforehand. But respect's got to be given to you guys, because that was massive.
That was a great time.
It set the bar pretty high, and I think we're just in a different state of college football right now, where it's kind of hard to reach that again, but not impossible. So I want to ask you then, Chase, during your time at Boise State, you mentioned the Idaho State game. That was like when you guys played Oregon at Oregon, like I think the next week, maybe. I can't remember if it was like the very next week or whatever. But then you had like the blunt punch that happened like the next year, and all the things that there was tons of games. You had Fiesta Bowl games, you had TCU games, you had a lot of games that good, bad, whatever. Do you have a favorite game memory that you could talk about?
Oh man, that's hard to just say one. Honestly, it really is. It's a collective of just being in the room with that whole defensive line, with the coaches, with we had some amazing coaches looking back and what they've continued to go on and do and accomplish. And so that whole experience, it's hard to point out one game. I loved the Virginia Tech game. I loved the Georgia game and the hype around that. But I also love the rivalry games. Beating the crap out of Fresno every year. That was always fun. It was just the whole experience and the people that were there, that they made it all worth it, man. I look back with nothing but love and fondness on my time on the blue.
I love it, dude. I love it. All those games, like I'm telling you, like, so I had just returned from a church mission in Brazil. And so 2010 is like, I got to go to the Virginia Tech game. That was my first time actually getting to see live your guys' team, like in person. So we traveled to Virginia Tech and then, we were at the Georgia game the next year and watched it. Like, so all those games, man, dude, It brings back a flood of memories. They're amazing. And then the one last question I would say is, who was a teammate that like was a big influence to you in a positive way, an influential teammate? And what's one lesson you learned from them when you were at Boise State?
Man, again, you're trying to make me pull out one guy. There's a lot of guys, um, influential. So in terms of looking at the older guys that were there, I had Joe Boz, I had Mike T. Williams that kind of showed me the way, and loved those guys. I really enjoyed Winston and my time with Winston and the energy he brought. Um, I could honestly go through every single guy. My roommates, honestly, I go back to my roommates. Corey Wirety, Dan Paul was one of those guys, and then later on it would be Mike Atkinson and Tyrone. And so the guys I live with, I love those guys to death, man. Those are my brothers. I can't just give you one name, man. There's too many. There's too many.
That's all good. I understand that. You guys, that's awesome. You were pretty tight knit with a lot of your guys. That's so cool. And the names you're mentioning, like they're legends, dude. That's so cool, dude. Like they're just well known for their football accolades, of course, but also they're good human beings. I had Winston on the show, actually. He was amazing. Just a cool, bright dude that like had some good stories and just like a good career. And it's just cool to hear from him too, like even in his business life. So that's awesome. So
good stuff. Well,
yeah. And now when you went to the NFL, I remember listening to Caves and Prater, which used to be a local radio show here when they were both doing it, before Caves took off. And I remember they were talking about, like who was going where, and like you were with the Vikings for training camp or whatever. And to my understanding, I think it was like you had gotten cut, but then got put onto the roster because you were with the Vikings still. Maybe you can explain that process to me. But when you got to the NFL, we talked about your transition from high school into college. What was the transition like from college to like the professional level?
Yeah, I think you just said it right there. It becomes, the college experience is just so different, and the NFL is a business, and so you get in there, and they're all businessmen, right? And so they have their own families. Usually in college you get done with practice and you go hang out with your guys and all that, but in the NFL it's much more professional. These guys are going home to their families, and it's kind of more business oriented, so it became very much more of a job. And not that that's a bad thing, it just kind of took the camaraderie out of it a little bit. But jumping into the NFL was, the opportunity to be there was mind blowing to me. I was just excited for that chance, and again, trying to take advantage of whatever I was given. So yeah, grateful for the Vikings and my time there.
When you're in the NFL, from what I've heard from others that have played, I mean, there's a speed and athleticism, strength requirement, and so forth. Where did you feel that you fit as a rookie? Where did you feel that you fit in on, like, in regards to that? Did you feel like you matched pretty well physically, athletically with the rest of the guys on there, both on the defensive line and then the guys you're going up against on the offensive line?
Yeah, no, oh man, that's if I'm being honest with myself, even I would look around and just be like, these guys are freaks, man. How am I here? Because they're just so strong and fast and smart and explosive, and it's just it's a different level. And so I worked as hard as I could because I wanted to be there, but there's some genetic stuff that is untouchable to me. I was like, there's not possible. I was watching guys incline bench like 405 like it was nothing. It was just wild. It was wild. Different level of strength and speed, man. And now in today's stuff, it's even crazier. But yeah, no, the athletes today are wild. And just props to the development and the growth of these guys and how serious they take it and how the body can be pushed to new limits.
It's an interesting perspective. I've shared this before, Chase, on my show, but there's a friend of mine who I went to high school with. He was 2 years younger than me, but he went to Idaho State and played safety there, and then moved up to linebacker or whatever. And then he told me one time about like a rookie mini camp that he went to for San Diego for the Chargers when they were in San Diego still. And he said something to me about like the fact that even this is a rookie mini camp. Like it's like the linemen, even those linemen that are like 6'3", 6'4", 300-pound dudes shouldn't be running that fast. That's what he mentioned. He's like, dude, it was just, I didn't belong there. That's what he told me. He's like, yeah, it was just a different, he ended up actually going over, I think, to Italy or something and playing a little bit over there. And then, he finished up his football career over there, and then just now he's on to new things. But it was cool to hear his experiences, though, man. He's just talking about, like, yeah, it's just a different beast. Some of those guys are genetic freaks, like you said. So it's just interesting to hear from your perspective too. Chase, out of your professional playing career, there's like a stint in the CFL as well. The Ottawa, was it the Red Blacks? Is that
Red Blacks?
Yeah, the Red Blacks. Winston, who we just referenced a couple minutes ago, he told me that he actually enjoyed the CFL more than the NFL just because of the business side of it. I'm not sure if maybe you had a similar experience or not, but I'd like to get your take on the CFL.
Yeah, so the CFL, man, it was a really quick stint for me. So I got up there for a training camp, was really excited about it. And obviously those guys are near the same level. There's not much difference, honestly. And I was excited with the Red Blacks. There was a number of Boise guys. Gavins was out there. BT was out there. One of the linemen, Gott, was out there. So I was excited to get there. Really wanted to play out that season, and it didn't work out. Played through the preseason stuff, and just the way it works with the Canada, I wasn't good at whatever it was. It didn't work out, but I think that was definitely one of the more disappointing things. I really wanted to be out there and go through that season, but Canada's, those guys out there are playing really good ball as well, and so nothing but respect to those guys.
Yeah, I want people to understand. That's what I'm enjoying about this interview, though, and we're going to get more into that too here in just a second. Is like there is talent, very good talent across the board in other areas. I think people get so caught up in like the NFL or even the NBA. Like people they're like, okay, this is America's sport. This is where the best players in the world are. Well, I'm like, well, yeah, but there's also good players that could play there if the situation was right. Like there's a business side of things, and like, contracts that are like, it's just hard to just get all the best people in the sport in like the NFL. Right. So like I've talked to guys from Canada, Sean Oakman, who's up there now playing, who played at Taylor. Oh yeah, that's right. Huh. That's right. Okay. So I forgot about that piece, but I talked to him, and, he was talking about his experience over in Canada, and like, he played in the XFL and all that stuff when that kind of relaunched, and then he's up there, and he shared that it was good quality football. So there's a lot of good athletes out there. Now, Chase, what was the decision? Like, when did you decide, like, hey, my playing days might be coming to a close, and then I need to transition to that next phase of my life? What was that decision like for you? When did that happen? If you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so right after the CFL thing, I'd been messed up my back, man. Was dealing with some back stuff, and so the CFL thing fell through. And then right after that, I went to the Patriots. I actually had agreed to sign with the Patriots. Went out for a workout, did really well. They were going to bring me in, and I went through my physical, and I had to go and so I go through all the doctor's appointments. I did my workout. Everything's good. They put me up at a hotel. The next morning, I'm supposed to start, with the team, go through practice. They gave me the playbook. I'm up all night trying to study. And the next morning, I showed up, and the doctor came, and he just said, "Hey, you failed your physical. Issues with my back, with my knee. Like I said, I'd had my fair share of surgeries and issues. So." But once, the stuff in the CFL fell through, and then the Patriots, after agreeing to sign me, decided, I failed my physical. That was kind of the hey, I think it's over now. Let's go ahead and start the transition. So that was when I knew it was over.
Did you have a hard time with that, with the reality, with them kind of pushing that, or did you kind of see those days coming? I'm curious to see what it's like inside of your head at that point, because that's hard. Like that's what you've been playing for your whole life, and now it's like, okay, it's time to move on. It's like, that's probably pretty tough, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
It was tougher than I expected, actually. And so I think going into it, I knew my chances. Like I didn't have. I sat down with my agent, and we're like, how many years are you gonna play? And most of the guys are saying 8 to 10 year careers. I'm like, man, I'll be happy with 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5 years in the NFL, I would be like dream come true. So I was just excited for the time I got. But when it did come, and knowing that it was kind of out of my control, that was definitely a hard thing to kind of handle and navigate. And then, I thought I had ideas and stuff I wanted to do, but that transition can be rough, and figuring out what comes next, it can be um, a downer, if you will, but it can be tough for some guys. So I love that the NFL and a lot of colleges now are trying to put resources in place to help guys, because that can, when it's such a large chunk of your life and you have the structure and the people around to help you, and all of a sudden that's all gone, it can be a hole that's hard to fill and hard to figure out what comes next. So I love to see the leagues and the colleges helping those guys transition as they move on to whatever is next.
100%, man. That is pretty tough. I mean, and everyone has a different reaction to it. I talked to Kamale Correa, who is also a former Boise State guy, and he kind of shared some of those struggles that he had too. When the days were over, when it was kind of almost like forced upon him too, is just like, well, yeah, this is it. Like, he had a transition period too, and he opened up about that on the show, and it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people. I don't think that the casual fan or just like the general population understands that, because they're like, oh, it's just sports. But I'm like, dude, it's high level sports, and like the time and dedication and the years that you've put into like being at that level and then having to like move to the next thing, and that's all of a sudden done. It's pretty hard. But yeah, I just wish people would understand that a little bit more and be a little more empathetic. But I mean, I can't control everybody. But Chase, when you got into the coaching side of things and just the training and development side of things, like, that's what I want to ask. Did you have aspirations to do that as well? Because some players don't want to coach, but then some players always say, "Well, I would like to coach when I get done," because it's a different ball game. Like I'm a coach for basketball, and I love coaching, but it's a whole different beast even in that than it was playing. And so I'm just curious, like, did you have aspirations to do that your whole life, or what was the transition for that?
I wouldn't say so. I think even once I was done, I knew I enjoyed football. And I thought there was ways I would stay around the game. I didn't think it was going to be coaching. A lot of coaches, you can feel it, and they'll tell you, no, this is what I was born for. I wouldn't say I fall into that category. I kind of had to continue to develop and work through the levels. And I started out, obviously back in my alma mater at Rockland High School. They said, come coach. I moved back there, and that was a really cool experience, and I enjoyed it. And then I kind of moved into the scouting side of things and didn't enjoy that as much as I thought I would. And honestly, I was thinking, okay, I'll move on. I'll do different stuff. But the game kept pulling me back, man. I'm doing camps. I'm doing stuff with the Cowboys, and then the FCF came along a couple years ago, and got the opportunity to go out there, and that kind of ignited my love for coaching as well. But it was a gradual progression of being like, okay, I'm okay at this. Okay, I really enjoy this aspect of it, and figuring out how you can help, and where your strengths are. And when I was young, I always thought coaches just kind of yelled and screamed, and you have to know everything, and that wasn't the case. So I think it was more of a gradual uh, ascent into loving the coaching profession and feeling like, this is something I'm meant to do.
No, that's awesome, dude. That is so cool, because like I said before, and you just alluded to it as well, is like not every player really wants to be a coach when they get and you kind of felt that way too. You're like, it wasn't like a lifelong thing, but you kind of developed that love for it and realized you were good at it, given some of the opportunities, and the game kept pulling you back. Like, that's super cool, I think. Going over to the FCF, okay, that discussion. Here's what's funny about that. So you mentioned Sean Oakman, but I was actually like going to tell you this on the show here. So 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago, I spoke with a guy named Jordan Harold. Jordan had a story, like it was quite a story, right? Like Missouri, his whole story there. And then he was standing outside of the Panthers facility with, trying to get an opportunity to go try out for him, play for him, and all that stuff. And then he was trying to play professional football, so he's over at the FCF. But at the time that I was recording with him, he was actually like, I think he was in a hotel room, and I don't know if they had to it was still during the COVID era when people were trying to be safe. So I think he was kind of quarantined or something before training camp happened. So I actually didn't get to hear about his playing days. I was talking to him while he was in the quarantine section. So that's it's just funny that now 3 years later I can chat with you. But FCF, the Fan Controlled Football League, it was an indoor football league. It was done through I think Twitch was streaming it. That's how it worked. There's some big names that came through there at different times. But I want to know, some people thought it was a joke, but a lot of players were taking it seriously as to get more film development and all that stuff to potentially have an opportunity to go somewhere else. So talk to me about your experience in the FCF and what your overall thoughts of the I guess the organization.
Yeah, no, of course. So I'm a gamer. I've always enjoyed video games. You know, the basic stuff. The Call of Duty, the Madden, the FIFA. Um, and so I just started getting into Twitch and that side of things. Um, and so the idea of giving fans control and letting them call plays and real life Madden almost live Madden, it was really cool. So when the opportunity came and I kind of pushed for it and I got that chance to go out there, it was just it was something different. And I loved the innovation. I loved how getting the fans involved and helping them call the plays. And I love that you brought up Jordan too. Jordan was a great player for us. Really great player, honestly. And so I wish he would have got more opportunities. But again, we're in the middle of COVID, right? And so, like you said, we had to go through. I think it was like a 2-week period where we're just in our rooms. They bring us food. We don't get to leave. Yeah, it was an interesting time, but it was one of the few leagues that continued to play and did games throughout, the intense period of lockdown. So it was a really cool opportunity to still be involved with the game.
That's so awesome. And from your perspective and what your role was, were you training all of the guys that were like were you helping all the defensive linemen regardless of team, or were you specifically like a coach for a team? Like how was it set up on that front?
Yeah, so it was a little different. So at that time we had 4 teams, and every Wednesday we would do a draft, and they would draft their players, and then you get to keep one each week. But no, so I was the D line coach for essentially the whole league, right? So enough D linemen to play for 4 teams, and then they'd get drafted, and they'd be in groups that would be drafted as defensive groups, and so they could be on different teams each week. But it was interesting because I'm trying to, teach them this stuff, and it's even new for me. That was my first experience with arena, and then they were kind of putting different rules on us that were difficult. We weren't allowed to do any kind of stunts or twists. It was essentially one-on-one. So which was kind of cool. I actually really appreciated that side of it. Hey, this is a one-on-one opportunity. You're going against solid linemen. A couple of the guys ended up going to the NFL. But yeah, no, it was just a really cool experience with some different rules thrown at us, um, and just great players in the league that were still trying to play, like you said, get their name out and continue getting tape and hopefully, chasing that dream.
For sure. I have a massive respect for companies like I mean the XFL, the USFL, whatever you want to call it now, but like like whatever they are. What is it? The UFL? Is it UFL?
UFO? I think
Yeah.
so. I think so.
And then like the FCF, like some people will just say, "Oh, this is stupid. It's not the NFL." I heard all the hate when I was trying to give praise to what was the AAF at one point that came through, and all that. Like, I mean, I understand that from a business perspective they folded, and I understand why, but like, it's like I give respect to that because it's unique. 1 and 2, it's giving these guys an opportunity. Football is one of those sports. It's very difficult to keep playing if you don't make the NFL, but we're going to talk about that. There's places to play. But like, if you really want to play at the highest level, like if you're out of college for 2 or 3 years, like you're considered old and washed up. And like, if you don't have film, you don't get an opportunity. Basketball, a little different. You can play overseas. You can basically play anywhere if you have the right agent and can get you somewhere, and you can get film, and all of a sudden you got it going. But football's tough. So anyway, I think it was cool that they brought that into it. And again, like you said, that was during the COVID era, during the lockdown era, and a lot of sports weren't going on. And this was allowing people to have some sort of live interaction, even if it was through a digital format too. But you guys were there, you were competing and giving them an opportunity. I think that's awesome. So moving on to like the next stages of your stuff, like then you went overseas, to my understanding. So like I remember Barcelona being like, so how did that happen? How does one just like get all that goes over there and starts coaching? Like, how did that even happen? Were you in connection with those guys before?
No, it wasn't before. Honestly, it was just a conversation with me and my wife. We were talking to some teams in Italy, and we're looking at like, hey, we could really do this. Like, is this something we want to do? And one thing led to another, and I ended up talking with the GM for the Barcelona Dragons, and yeah, we just had a discussion. Me and my wife said, let's do it. And so agreed to it. And yeah, we went over to Barcelona and I spent 2 years there. Had an amazing time. Enjoyed the weather, enjoyed the beach, the people. And then we played some great football. We really did. We had some great players, some great defensive linemen. One of my D linemen the first year ended up leading the league in sacks for all Europeans. There's one guy who was Kyle Kitchens, who was also one of my guys at FCF. But yeah, he ended up beating us and had a half sack more than our guy at Barcelona. But man, it was just a really cool experience, and it opened my eyes to kind of the European scene and what was going on over there and the growth of the game over here. But yeah, no, love my time in Barcelona, and it was just a chance and something me and my wife decided let's go.
Dude, that's super cool. Barcelona, to my understanding, is beautiful. I've never been there. I wish all my friends that have been there have said how beautiful it is. Like they want to move there. Just it's just beautiful. It's like a hidden gem. Everyone hears about Spain. Oh, it's beautiful, but like if you're not, everyone who's gone there wants to move there. That's all I got to say. But maybe it's because we're all in Idaho and everybody wants to get out of here. I don't know, but um, yeah, dude, that's super cool. Now, in regards to the talent level and maybe the fan interaction, now back in the day, there was the NFL Europe and there was some attraction out there, but it's not obviously like it is here. But what was the game like atmosphere like and the quality of football like from a player's perspective? I know you're not just going to you're not going to crap on your organizations over there and stuff, but like just realistically, was it a solid environment? Did the fans really get into it?
Yeah, and so we didn't have as many as we'd like, but I can tell you that every fan that was there brought an insane intensity, and they were wild. They were screaming. They brought drums and would be right on the opposing sideline, just going. They had their microphone. It was really intense. And so, if we had games with 2,500 people, it was a very intense atmosphere. The fans definitely brought that almost that soccer environment, right? That hooligan mentality, which I loved. And yeah, if we could just, and so another Boise guy is taking over actually the Dragons. So Jason Robinson is out there. Um, he took over and he's helping build that thing and he's putting it together. Um, and yeah, man, so really excited to see what they do. But if we can just expand that fan base and get 5,000 of those guys, that's going to be a rocking. But wherever they're playing, it's going to be a rocking stadium because those Spanish fans bring it, man. They're a lot of fun.
That's so cool, man. Um, my guy that I had on the show a couple years back, his name's Donovan Isom, and he's actually a quarterback in Germany,
Yeah.
I think. I'm
Yep.
not sure where he's at exactly. I think he's in Germany, but yeah. Anyway, he's playing out there, and then my guy Hunter was actually playing in Italy. I thought last year he blew his knee out, he tore his MCL, but he was a running back. But anyway, he was out there, either Italy or Spain. I actually thought he was in Spain, so I could be wrong on that too. But Hunter was out there, and it's just cool to see a lot of guys are taking that route now. So that's why I kind of wanted to highlight that. Sure, it's going to be a little different. There's not going to be as many like NFL talented guys on the field, but there are still talented dudes. When I was in Brazil, Chase, I served a church mission in Brazil, and I remember walking by the local park, and they were putting together an American football team, and like the quarterback didn't know how to actually throw a spiral. So I was the only American there. My companion was a Brazilian. And I walked over to him. I'm in a shirt and tie with a name tag looking like a goober, but like I take the football and I'd show him a 3-step drop and throw it. And then like I had an opportunity to kind of like chat with those guys. And I was like, I got this impression that Brazilian American football is absolutely atrocious, but that just happened to be my only time seeing it. I actually got to see the professional level over there, and they have their own league too. It's a professional league there too, and they're actually talented, man. Like, so I'm like, oh, okay, there's talent out there. And the thing that you said about hooligan mentality, like the hooligan style, that's what it's like in Brazil too. Like in the American football, they bring the soccer mentality to it a little bit, and I actually think it's sick. I love that, to be honest. So
No, it's awesome.
super cool. So you're in the UK, NFL Academy. Talk to us about this and what you're doing for this. What is the NFL Academy? What are you guys doing? Make sure I pronounce that correctly, but just tell me what you're up to right now.
Yeah, so like you said, NFL Academy. So after I was so my second year in Barcelona, I took over and we started our first year of the Dragons Academy. And so I kind of put together and was the head coach for the academy. And that experience was really awesome. And even, while I was with Barcelona, a lot of these young cats that were coming through, it was like these guys could play in college, and they deserve to have that opportunity. And there's just not as much. So when the NFL Academy opportunity kind of showed up, it just made so much sense. And so the ability to kind of guide these guys and help them go pursue and get, earn those scholarships in the U.S., that really struck a chord with me. And so I wanted to be out here. I wanted to be part of this. But yeah, so the NFL Academy is it is the IMG of Europe, essentially. So we're looking for the talent, the physical traits that are going to translate really well to the American game, and we are just an intense development program, right? We're trying to get these guys ready to step onto a college field and contribute. And so the theme is talent is distributed evenly. Opportunity isn't. And so we have some huge kids out here in Europe, spread throughout Europe, Africa, Australia. We don't discriminate. Essentially, anywhere outside of the U.S. and Canada, we're recruiting. We're trying to find the best international players. We bring them to here in Loughborough. We got an amazing strength conditioning staff. We got trainers. We have a great coaching staff, and so we have replicated it to essentially any large Division I program. And these guys are coming in and they're learning the game at a high level. They're quickly developing their bodies, right? We're putting them through intense conditioning programs. We're bulking them up. We're trying to get them and their bodies ready to rock. And then obviously we get to play football 5 days a week all year long. And so right now we're about to have our first game this Sunday. We're kicking off our spring season, and so we're going to play the Schwäbisch Hall Unicorns, which is a storied program out here in Europe. They have a really cool documentary, and they've been they've been a big dog in Germany. Not been, have been, they still are. And so Germany's kind of the powerhouse of American football out here in Europe. And there's some other countries and the Nordic countries that are catching on, but there's some good ball out here. But yeah, we bring in all these guys and we're just trying to get them games. We're trying to get them exposure. And then we have our fall season. So we go over and we play a number of American teams. Last year we played 3 American teams with IMG, their varsity team, IMG varsity. We played Erasmus Hall, which was a New York playoff team, and then we had Bonner Prendy. And so we beat all 3 of them, or excuse me, we beat 2 of them. Bonner Prendy was before I got here, and we lost, but had some great games, man. And I think we're continuing to build and get these players, and you're seeing it, right? We have right now it's 12 of 19, but that number is going to increase. But of our 19 eligible players, 12 of them have signed to go play at the NCAA. Most of them at D1 level. So we're putting out guys. We're getting them developed the way they need to, and yeah, man, we're just trying to help these guys reach their goals and get that scholarship.
That's the first time I have heard what the NFL Academy is. Like, I mean, I could have probably searched it and done a little bit more research, but I've never actually heard it. I didn't realize it was the IMG of Europe, basically. Like, that's an incredible opportunity for those guys to play and have opportunities to go play college. But like, that is so sick that you're part of that. I think that's awesome, man. Holy cow. Man, that is such a cool opportunity. I'm going to be looking more into this. I think that's
man.
super, super cool. Like that. What a cool thing to take your talents overseas and be part of such a huge thing. That's massive. That's such a massive opportunity for everybody over there. I don't even think people realize that. Like, to give them an opportunity to get scholarships and play at the collegiate level, potentially D1 level too. Like, that's just get offers. Just have an opportunity to play is awesome. Man. So Chase, I got a question for you then. All right. For what you've got here, right? So you've got this experience, you've played, you've coached, you're developing everything. Now you're trying to get these kids over to the collegiate level. The college game is different now. I think we can all say that, as far as like the structure, the organization of things. Obviously the talent level is different, but like it's talent is talent. It's the game itself is the same, but there's NIL. And I want to get your take on like how NIL maybe these kids, do they get to take advantage of that as well when they're over in Europe, or is that something that they're looking for when they go to programs as well? Like when they're getting recruited for NCAA teams coming out of Europe, like the NIL stuff has changed the landscape. And I just kind of want to get your take on it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think obviously everybody can look at it and have a negative take on it, but and there are some things that need to be corrected. But at the end of the day, you're allowing the athletes that have a very short career in a very short window of time to make money off of what they're doing and the time, the effort that they've put in. I think that overall is a great thing, and you can't take that away. And so you can say all the negative stuff you want, but I'm happy these kids are going to have an opportunity to utilize their name, image, likeness, and definitely encourage that. Now it's just a matter of putting it in kind of setting some limits and setting some rules of how it should be done and getting it a little more organized. Because right now it's just a little wild, but man, I have no complaints. I'm happy for it. It's when I was playing, I would have loved to be in this opportunity. And I hope all these guys are taking advantage of it. There's some really cool stuff they can do and continue to grow their brand. But yeah, no, for the international guys, it's a little different because they're going over on a certain kind of educational visa. And so their NIL stuff has to happen in their country of origin. And so I think as we figure this out, some stuff should pop up, and I hope people kind of figure out how they can help the athletes that are originating from Europe, because there's a lot of them, right? So obviously we want to be the top dog. Obviously the NFL logo, we want to be the who's putting out the players, but there's plenty of guys that aren't going to come through our program that are going to go to great places. D1 got all the top programs. And they deserve that opportunity as well. And so it's just got to be originated from their country or Europe, or I don't understand exactly how the rules are, but I know they can't make money off the NIL. So the international guys have to take a little different route. And I hope we get that figured out, because they should definitely be able to take advantage of that as well.
Super interesting, man. But I appreciate you giving the insight. Now, Chase, last question I got for you, man. It's just one that I want to give the insight to the listener base here. Looking at your career thus far, which is not over, you're just getting started, man. Like as far as like coaching, development, all that stuff. So at this point in your career, looking at your whole life, injuries in high school and all the stuff, and playing at Boise State and playing for the Vikings, CFL opportunity, all the things that we talked about. What's the biggest life lesson that football has taught you?
Oh man, it's don't let it. You can't let the little things stop you. You always got to come through adversity. You got to work through it, and just consistency. If you want something, you got to continue to work for it. And I say reverse engineer it, man. I love looking at what your goal is and then figuring out the steps you need to take to get it done. But man, there's a million ways that sports translates to life, and the things that it can provide you to benefit you in the different areas. Again, you're trying to get me to say one thing, because I could go through the teamwork and the camaraderie and the grit, and there's a million things. But I think for me, it's definitely the mentality of there's nothing that's going to stop me. I can overcome everything, and I'll find a way. And so that's kind of what I appreciate from my time in sports is I'll find a way.
Dude, I love that, though. That's so cool. I appreciate your time, Chase. I'll let you get going now. He's busy. He's on the other side of the world doing his thing, way ahead of time on what I'm recording right now. So he's got to get to bed probably here soon. So that being said, I appreciate you, Chase. And for all those who are listening, make sure to hit the subscribe button, because we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.